The stillness was what drew attention first, not the sight itself but the way the air seemed to hold its breath around the lion's body. He lay on his side where the grass thinned into dust, ribs lifting unevenly beneath a coat dulled by heat and exhaustion. Each breath came shallow, delayed, as if effort alone determined whether the next would arrive. The savanna around him moved as it always did, insects rising and falling, distant birds lifting and settling, yet the lion did not respond. Beside his shoulder, pressed close enough to feel the faint warmth that remained, a small cub waited, compact and silent, ears twitching at sounds the larger body no longer acknowledged. The cub's posture carried none of the clumsy playfulness typical of its age. It stayed low, paws tucked beneath its chest, eyes fixed on the lion's face. Occasionally it shifted forward, nudging lightly with its muzzle, then retreating when there was no response. A soft sound escaped its throat once, not a call, not a cry, but something tentative and unfinished. The lion's tail lay slack against the ground, unmoving, its black tuft coated in dust. Even flies gathered without being chased away. Footsteps reached the edge of the scene long before anyone spoke. They were slow, deliberate, the kind learned through years of moving among animals that could mistake haste for threat. Rangers stopped several meters away, allowing the air to settle again before taking another step. No one rushed forward. No hands reached out. Their concern grew quietly, measured by the lion's breathing and the cub's refusal to leave his side. The lion's eyes were half open, unfocused, reflecting light without tracking it. His ears flicked once at the sound of boots shifting in the grass, then fell still again. A ranger lowered himself to one knee, careful not to close the distance too quickly. Another remained standing, scanning the horizon for signs of a pride that did not appear. The savanna stretched outward in muted golds and browns, dry from months without rain, offering little shelter and less forgiveness to a weakened body. The cub turned briefly toward the humans, its gaze sharp and uncertain. It did not growl or retreat. Instead, it pressed closer to the lion's chest, one paw resting against the slow rise and fall beneath. Its small body trembled, not from fear alone but from fatigue, from hours spent waiting in a posture that demanded stillness. When the lion's breath stuttered, the cub lifted its head, nose brushing his whiskers, searching for movement. "It's okay, girl," one ranger murmured, barely louder than the wind moving through the grass. The words were not meant for comfort in the human sense. They were a marker of presence, a sound offered without expectation of response. The lion's breathing remained shallow, but it did not worsen. His jaw shifted slightly, muscles tightening and releasing as if responding to something far away. The cub settled again, reassured not by language but by the continued rhythm beneath its paw. No one attempted to touch the lion. Intervention waited on observation, on patience shaped by the understanding that survival often balanced on small margins. The heat pressed down, the sun climbing higher, and shadows shortened around the motionless pair. Somewhere in the distance, a herd moved, hooves stirring dust that drifted and settled again. As the light softened toward afternoon, a breeze passed through the grass, carrying with it the faint scent of animals and earth. The cub lifted its head once more, eyes half-lidded now, exhaustion finally outweighing vigilance. It leaned fully against the lion's chest, rising and falling with each uneven breath. The savanna exhaled around them and for a moment the quiet held. The distance between the man and the lion closed slowly, measured in careful steps and long pauses. Nothing in the approach carried urgency. Each movement was shaped to be visible, predictable, leaving no sudden changes for tired eyes to misread. The cub sensed the shift before the lion reacted. Its ears angled forward, body tensing, weight shifting as it watched the unfamiliar figure advance through the grass. The lion's breathing grew slightly more uneven, a shallow hitch passing through his chest as effort gathered beneath thinning strength. What followed was subtle, almost easy to miss. The lion's foreleg moved first, drawing inward, then extending again with deliberate restraint. His massive head lowered, muzzle brushing against the cub's side. There was no force behind it, no warning sound. Just a slow, guiding pressure, enough to urge the small body forward. The cub stumbled a half step, surprised, then froze, suddenly positioned between the lion and the approaching man. The gesture carried none of the sharpness of defense. It did not resemble a threat display or an attempt to intimidate. The lion did not bare his teeth or lift his head. Instead, his body remained grounded, heavy against the earth, eyes half open and fixed on the man through the narrow space over the cub's back. Exhaustion shaped the movement more than fear. It was the act of an animal with no remaining strength to confront, choosing placement over resistance. The cub stood uncertainly, its small frame rigid, tail low. It turned its head once, glancing back at the lion as if to confirm what had been asked of it. The lion's muzzle rested briefly against the cub's shoulder again, a quiet reassurance through contact alone. The cub did not retreat. It remained where it had been guided, chest rising quickly, breath shallow from confusion and heat. The man stopped immediately. He did not step closer. He did not reach out. He lowered himself slowly, reducing his height, allowing the space to widen again without retreating entirely. His eyes moved between the lion and the cub, reading the posture, the intention embedded in stillness. This was not a challenge. It was not surrender either. It was something fragile in between, shaped by circumstance rather than instinct alone. "You're doing good," he said softly, the words released with care, barely carrying beyond the grass. The cub's ears flicked at the sound. It did not move toward the voice, nor did it flee. Its attention split, caught between the warmth behind it and the presence ahead. The lion exhaled slowly, a long breath that seemed to empty what little tension remained in his chest. His eyes closed for a brief moment, then opened again, tracking the man without lifting his head. Dust shifted as the breeze passed through, brushing against fur and skin alike. The savanna offered no cover, no place to hide intent, and the openness stripped the moment down to its simplest truth. The lion had placed what mattered most where it could be seen. Not as a shield, not as an offering, but as a statement shaped by necessity. He could not rise. He could not protect through force. What remained was trust measured in inches. The cub lowered itself slowly, sitting where it stood, paws drawn close, body still tense but no longer rigid. It leaned back just enough to keep contact with the lion's chest, reassured by the uneven rhythm beneath. The man stayed where he was, breathing steady, allowing the arrangement to hold. Around them, the grass moved in soft waves, bending and lifting again. Somewhere far off, a bird called and then fell silent. Between lion, cub, and man, the space remained open, delicate, balanced on a choice that could not be undone. The man remained where he had lowered himself, knees pressed into the dust, hands resting loosely against his thighs. He did not adjust his posture when the cub began to move. The small body rose slowly, stiffness evident in the way its legs straightened one by one. It paused, head turning, eyes scanning the open space ahead before pivoting back toward the lion. The decision was quiet, unannounced. The cub circled with careful steps, keeping its flank close to the larger body as if tracing a familiar boundary. As it moved, details emerged that distance had softened before. The cub's coat was dulled and patchy along one shoulder, fur thinned where skin showed through. Its gait carried a slight hitch, a subtle imbalance that suggested long hours of walking beside a body that could no longer set the pace. When it reached the lion's head, it lowered itself again, tucking close beneath the heavy jaw. Its back pressed into the lion's chest, not for warmth alone, but for contact, grounding itself in the presence it refused to abandon. From this angle, the lion's condition revealed itself more clearly. His flank barely rose now, breath shallow enough to be counted without effort. Dried blood darkened the fur near his hind leg, the wound old, edges stiffened by dust and time. One eye remained half open, the other sealed shut by swelling that had gone down unevenly. The lion did not lift his head when the cub settled. He only shifted his muzzle slightly, resting it against the small curve of the cub's back. The man noticed the change in rhythm first. The lion's breathing faltered, paused, then resumed with effort that traveled through his entire body. There was no sudden collapse, no dramatic sign of ending, just a gradual thinning of strength. The cub responded immediately, lifting its head, nudging at the lion's face with insistence. A soft sound escaped its throat, low and brief, more vibration than voice. "It's all right," the man said quietly, the words shaped to be steady rather than reassuring. The cub did not react to the sound. Its attention stayed fixed on the lion, movements becoming more deliberate, as if repeating actions learned through hours of waiting. It pressed its forehead against the lion's jaw, then settled again, maintaining contact. The gesture was not frantic. It was practiced. The purpose of the cub's presence began to shift in meaning. It was not simply waiting beside a fallen adult. It was staying, guarding space, maintaining connection. The cub's body blocked the sun from the lion's face, casting a small shadow that moved as the light shifted. When insects gathered, the cub flicked its tail weakly, chasing them away from the lion's eyes. The man leaned forward slightly, no closer but attentive to the change. He saw now that the cub's movements were not random. They were patterned, repeated, shaped by time spent beside a body that no longer responded fully. The cub was not lingering out of confusion. It was performing a role it had assumed gradually, step by step, as the lion's strength diminished. The savanna remained open and indifferent, wind moving through dry grass without pause. Somewhere beyond the frame of the moment, life continued as it always had. Yet here the cub's presence carved out something quieter. It was not survival in the immediate sense. Food, movement, escape, all had been set aside. What remained was purpose measured not in instinct alone, but in persistence. The lion's breathing steadied slightly, not stronger but more regular, as the cub settled once more against his chest. The man stayed kneeling, eyes lowered, allowing the arrangement to remain untouched. Light drifted across the ground, and the long grass whispered softly as the day moved forward. Time slowed into something almost weightless as the man remained kneeling, his presence settling into the land rather than interrupting it. The cub stayed pressed against the lion, its small body rising and falling with quick breaths that gradually eased. Nothing announced the change that followed. It arrived the way many rare moments do, quietly, without spectacle, revealed only to those who were still enough to notice. The lion shifted. It was not an attempt to stand, nor a reflexive flinch. His shoulder rolled just enough to change the angle of his body, muscles tightening briefly beneath the skin before releasing again. Dust lifted and settled. The movement exposed more of his chest to the sun, and in doing so, altered the space where the cub rested. The cub reacted instantly, lifting its head, adjusting its position, then settling once more beneath the lion's foreleg as it came to rest across the cub's back. The weight was light, carefully placed. The foreleg did not pin or restrain. It curved protectively, forming a partial barrier between the cub and the open savanna. From this new position, the cub was shielded from the harshest glare of the sun and from the insects that drifted closer as the air warmed. The lion's breathing grew slower, deeper for a moment, as if the act itself had brought some measure of relief. The man recognized the significance without needing to name it. This was not a random adjustment. It was an intentional placement, a final refinement of care. The lion had chosen how his remaining strength would be used. He could not rise. He could not lead or hunt or defend in the way his body once knew. But he could still position himself between danger and what mattered. A pair of vultures had gathered at a distance, dark shapes against the pale sky, watching with patient detachment. The cub noticed them too, ears flicking, body tensing beneath the lion's leg. The lion's tail twitched once, then again. A low sound moved through his chest, barely audible, more vibration than warning. It was enough. The birds shifted, stepping back, understanding the boundary even now. The cub settled, reassured not by sound but by contact. Its breathing slowed until it matched the uneven rhythm beneath the lion's ribs. One paw stretched forward, resting against the lion's chest, claws lightly touching fur worn thin by time and travel. The cub's eyes closed briefly, then opened again, fighting sleep before yielding to it. The man did not move. He felt the instinct to act rise and fall within him, acknowledged and released. This was not a moment to intervene. It was a moment to witness. He lowered his gaze slightly, reducing his presence even further, allowing the quiet arrangement to exist without pressure. "You're safe," he whispered, more breath than sound. The words drifted and disappeared into the grass. The lion's ears flicked once in response, then stilled. His eyes closed fully now, not in collapse but in rest. The cub slept beneath his foreleg, body curled, chest rising in small, steady motions. The savanna shifted around them. Wind moved through tall grass in slow waves, carrying scent and dust across the open land. Light softened, edging toward evening, stretching shadows long and thin. Somewhere beyond sight, a distant herd moved, hooves brushing earth, life continuing in patterns older than memory. In the center of it all, the lion and cub remained as they were, bound together in a final, deliberate shape. Protection had taken its simplest form. Trust had been offered without demand. The man stayed kneeling until the sun dipped lower, the grass whispering softly, and the quiet held. The change came gradually, almost imperceptibly at first, carried on the cooling air as the sun eased lower. Shadows lengthened across the savanna, softening the sharp lines of heat and dust that had defined the day. The lion stirred beneath the fading light, breath still uneven but no longer faltering. His foreleg loosened its hold, lifting just enough for the cub to shift free. The cub rose slowly, stretching stiff limbs, then turned back, pressing its body briefly against the lion's chest as if marking the moment before separation. The lion gathered himself with visible effort. His head lifted, unsteady, then steadied again. Muscles along his shoulders tightened, testing weight against ground that had held him too long. He did not rush the movement. He rested between attempts, conserving what strength remained. The cub stayed close, circling, stopping when the lion paused, moving again when he did. Their rhythm was altered, slower than before, but it held. When the lion finally pushed himself upright, it was not without cost. His hind leg lagged slightly, bearing weight reluctantly, and his breathing deepened with the strain. Till he stood. The cub pressed in at his side, offering balance through contact alone. Together they remained still for a long moment, bodies aligned, facing the open grasslands that stretched ahead. The man rose only after they did. He kept his distance, movements minimal, understanding that this departure was not for him to shape. He watched as the lion took his first step forward, then another, each one careful, deliberate. The cub followed immediately, adjusting its pace to match the uneven gait, never straying more than a body's length away. They moved without looking back. The savanna accepted them quietly, grass parting around their legs, closing again behind them. With each step, the signs of struggle softened into something else. Not recovery, not resolution, but continuation. The path ahead was uncertain, altered by injury and time, yet it remained a path chosen. The man stood where he was, hands resting at his sides, breathing slow. There was nothing more to do. He felt no triumph, no need to define what he had witnessed. The moment asked for no record, no explanation. It existed fully on its own. "Go on," he murmured, barely audible, the words carried away by the breeze. The cub paused once, just briefly, lifting its head to scan the grass before moving again. The lion did not stop. His focus stayed forward, toward the deepening hues of evening. As they went, their shapes merged gradually with the land, outlines softening until fur and grass shared the same color, the same movement. Cool air settled in as the sun dipped closer to the horizon. The heat of the day released its hold, replaced by the quiet breath of dusk. Insects began their low chorus, and somewhere far off, another lion called, the sound distant and unhurried. The cub pressed closer to the lion as they walked, their silhouettes thinning until they were little more than motion against light. The man remained long after they disappeared from view. He watched the place where they had been until it looked no different from anywhere else. Grass bent and lifted. Wind passed through. The savanna resumed its wide, patient rhythm. As the sky deepened into soft amber and blue, the man turned away, carrying with him no proof, only the memory of a quiet trust offered and returned. Behind him, the grass whispered in the cooling air, and somewhere beyond sight, two figures moved on, unbroken, into the fading light.